This is the craziest basketball game that I've ever played. I'm not sure I can even call it basketball. It's kind of got some basketball elements, but it feels more like organized chaos with a ball and a rim. Or make that one ball and 3 rims. And it very well might be the best basketball game on the NES. Well, on the Famicom, that is. Now, this is one of those Kunio Kun games. It was released on the Famicom in Japan in December 1993. That makes it one of the last 8-bit Nintendo games released anywhere in the world. And it's pure chaos, so let's dive in. As you might already know, this is one of those Technos Japan games. The ninja and the kung fu elements make that part obvious. However, the other Techno sports games at least featured a little bit of the sport. This one, well, just look at it. To understand what in the world is going on, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the Kunio Kun series, and I'll keep this as brief as I can. The first hit game that Technos had was this arcade game called Nekketsu go ha Kunio Kun, Hot-Blooded Tough Guy Mr. Kunio. This is where the Kunio Kun name comes from. We know this game as Renegade in the West. This game was a pretty simple beat-em-up with one catch. There was one button for attacking to the left and another button for attacking to the right. The NES version had the same control scheme and it's kind of a pain. Anyway, the main character is named Kunio Kun and he's the star of pretty much all of these games. The second game was called Nekketsu Goko Dodgeball Bu, or Hot-Blooded High School Dodgeball Club. It was a fun arcade game, sure. However, the Famicom and NES versions were better. You probably have played this. This is called Super Dodgeball in the West. It's the same game. Well, Super Dodgeball was the franchise's first really big hit in the West. It's an absolutely fantastic game that's easy to pick up and is still worth playing to this day. Of course, there was the constant screen flickering, and some of the backgrounds are ridiculous. Anyway, after this one, they came out with a game called Downtown Nekketsu Monogatari, or Downtown Hot-Blooded Story. You know this game, it's River City Ransom, one of the best beat-em-up games on the NES. And this game is where the series gets its flavor from. Well, notice what happened here. So we had a fighting game first, and kind of a lousy one of that. We then had a really good sports game, Dodgeball, that was followed up with another fighting game, but one that used the sprites and the controls from the sports game. And, well, from then on, they decided to sort of combine the two of them together. Nekketsu Goko Dodgeball Bu Soka Hen was next, Hot-Blooded High School Dodgeball Club Soccer Story. I'm not kidding, the name does say Dodgeball Club, I'm dead serious. Anyway, if you grew up in the West, you know this game as Nintendo World Cup Soccer. The Japanese version had high school teams, not World Cup teams. They changed a ton of stuff for the international release, probably because it would have been awkward to explain all the high school violence. Anyway, if you've ever wondered about why World Cup Soccer has that really strange system of telling other guys what to do, it's because Kunio is the leader of the game. This was a great 4-player game back in the day, but it's kind of slow when you play it today. There was a sequel to this game, but it came out only in Japan, and it's really slow. I recommend staying away. The truth is that most of us only know about this series because of River City Ransom and Nintendo World Cup. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't know that Super Dodgeball was also a part of the same series. Well, the crazy thing is that the best games of the NES series were actually never released in the United States. Ike Ike Nekketsu Hochibu, or Go Go Hot-Blooded Hockey Club, is simply awesome. This is basically a fighting game disguised as a hockey game. You can beat guys up with your stick. If you hit them enough, they go crazy, and then they get sent to the penalty box. This game's crazy fun, and it's probably the best NES sports game that never got a US release. The other important one is this one, Nekketsu Kakuto Tensetsu, or Hot-Blooded Fighting Legend. This is a pure 2-on-2 fighting game and is extremely fun. The obstacles alone make this one worth picking up and playing. Now, the hockey and the fighting games both came out in 1992. That was already the 16-bit era, and Technos knew this, by the way. They came out with a port of the soccer game for the Mega Drive, Japan's version of the Sega Genesis, in early 1993. It's better than the NES version in tons of ways, especially since there's no more screen flickering. Unfortunately though, most of the other games didn't get upgraded. There was an upgraded version of Super Dodgeball and the Super Famicom, but not much else. And I think this is because the company was busy working on making this basketball game for the Famicom, and that's really strange. Let me put this into perspective for you. Okay, this is a list of the final NES games released around the world. The Lion King and Aladdin were PAL-only releases, so they really shouldn't count. Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak is notorious in the NES collecting community. Adventure Island 4 is notorious among fans of the series who were upset that it never came out abroad. But really, all these games with a 1994 release date were really unusual. The most famous of them was almost certainly Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, one of the most impressive games on the old NES hardware. And then under the unlicensed games you find this one, Nekketsu Street Basket Ganbare Dunk Heroes, released December 22nd, 1993. December 1993? They were still releasing games in December 1993? I mean, it blows my mind. Only 15 Famicom and NES games worldwide came out after this one. That's out of the 1,376 total released for the console. And seriously, I can understand why some of those licensed games came out so late, sure. What I don't understand is why Tecmo spent so much time and effort on this one instead of just giving us one for a 16-bit console. Like I said, they already had the soccer game out on the Mega Drive. A week before the basketball game came out, they also released this baseball game on the Super Famicom. This baseball game is pretty bad, by the way. The user experience is horrible, especially when the ball is in the field. Anyway, I guess we'll never know for sure what they were thinking. Technos went out of business in 1996, by the way, and I seriously think that coming out with a Famicom game about a year and a half after the system was dead might have had something to do with that. The story behind this game is that Kunio Kun wins a prize on a television show. The prize is to go to the United States for a vacation or something. His gangster friends sneak aboard the plane with him, and then for some reason that is never really explained, he has to play a bunch of streetball basketball games. Anyway, every level has its own special characteristics. New York City has a subway you can go down. Las Vegas has a slot machine that gives you extra points. The players in Florida can teleport and grab your shot right before it goes in the basket, which is extremely annoying. And Texas has all sorts of crazy things going on. Now, the settings and the fighting sort of is what it is, but honestly, the big question is how playable this game really is, right? Well, there are some problems. For one thing, the control is really slippery. You've only got 2 buttons since it's a Famicom game. Almost every move requires you to push A and B together in some fashion. You also need to dash around, which means pushing left or right twice in quick succession. Things become so chaotic though that you wind up just pushing left and right over and over again and mashing the buttons at random. Now the objects in this game are actually pretty cool, though you can't do much more with them than hit people or throw them at the basket. However, the basket itself can break off. You can steal it from your opponents. This gives you more points and gives them nothing to shoot at. That's a problem though when your basket has been stolen and your teammate just shoots at the backboard instead. There are 3 rims in all, and they all give you 3 points from what I can tell. But having the bottom rim break off and turn into your opponent's basket is really frustrating. Anyway, my strategy is to focus on fighting and just let the computer shoot. I like to give the computer control over Kunio since he's the best shooter on your team. It's interesting gameplay, I'll give you that, but it's really chaotic. And I'm not the only one who notices, by the way. This is the review of the game from Weekly Famitsu magazine at the end of 1993. As you can see, the reviewers weren't all that impressed. These scores are out of 10 points. In reading these, I learned new Japanese vocabulary words for chaotic, such as gocha gocha. And then in this article we have hacha mecha, which means the same thing, chaotic. Some of the reviewers thought the game was fun despite the chaos. Others, though, weren't quite as impressed. And I'll tell you why. It's because this game wasn't released until late 1993. As you know, NBA Jam was released in the arcades in spring 1993. That game had some violence, sure, but it also had extremely good gameplay. You always feel like you know what you're doing. In the Kunio game, I usually feel like I've got no idea what's going on. Even the Fighting Legend game has better controls, and that one I feel like I can find my character and do what I want to do. In this basketball game, it's just nothing but chaos. But the real question is not whether this game was better than the NBA Jam arcade game, right? I mean, what we really want to know is how this one stacks up against the other NES basketball games. And that's kind of a different story, mostly because the NES has some really, really bad basketball games. Ever play Arch Rivals for the NES? The arcade game is okay, but a bit slow. Well, the NES game is a little bit faster, but the punching is really delayed. I'm not sure if there's much strategy here at all. If you want a better 2-on-2 game, try Hoops. Even still though, Hoops has random foul calls and can get really frustrating. I found Jordan vs. Bird to be absolutely horrible. You have to push A and then B just to shoot the ball, and you always get the timing wrong. Magic Johnson's fast break is pretty bad. This one reminds me of Atari basketball games. I mean, you can kind of control things, but not that much. The arcade game was also pretty bad, by the way. And then you've got Ultimate Basketball, which is just horrible. You can't pass the ball in bounds, the controls are delayed like crazy, and even the computer has a hard time not traveling. There are really only 2 good basketball games on the NES, and you probably already know both of them. Double Dribble on the NES is excellent. The defense isn't great, sure, but it's a lot of fun to get the ball and just shoot from the sweet spots. Just don't shoot down here, there's a bug that makes you miss every time. The arcade game looks nicer but has one major flaw. There's a separate button for dribbling, which was a really dumb idea. Stick with the NES game, it's a blast, especially if you play it 2-player. And then there's Tecmo Super Basketball, a game that's near and dear to my own heart. My neighbor had a copy of this game when I was growing up. I played it all the time, though I never was that good at it. The problem is that the screen flickers like crazy when all the sprites are moving at the same time. You can never see which player you need to control. However, once you figure out how the defense works, it's actually pretty easy. You can steal the ball almost every time they bring it down the court, then just find the open guy and you get a dunk. Do that over and over again and you'll win in the end. It's not as pretty as the Super NES version, sure, but it's still a pretty good game. And I'd say that it's probably the best basketball game on the NES, but what about this Technos game? How does this one fit in? I'd put this game in 3rd place behind Tecmo and Double Dribble. It's not really a basketball game, to be honest. However, it's also not really that different from games like Hoops. It's a 2-on-2 game and you can treat it as a basketball game if you really want to. There are no rules, sure, but it's not like there are tons of rules in the other games anyway. It's not complex, and there's really no way you can master any sort of strategy behind this game. This guide on GameFAQs gives you just an idea of how complex the special move system and item system is. In the end, just hit buttons and hope for the best. At least as far as I'm concerned, it's not worth the effort to try to figure out exactly what's going on. Anyway, there you have it. Is it chaotic? Yeah. Is it fun? Well, kind of, unless the chaos goes against you. Is it the best basketball game on the system? Well, probably not, but it is worth playing at least once or twice. And honestly, I really do think it's a shame that they never made an updated version for any of the more advanced systems.